Health is sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, MD, Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, MD.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AIM Impact on Your Health. AIM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AIM Impact on Your Health is heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AIM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Ladies and gentlemen, today I hope you're going to have an enjoyable time. In fact, I hope you have an enjoyable week because this particular guest will be our guest the first time. It's a one-of-a-kind each and every one of our 3 days with you this week. His message is so powerful. His proofs, his science are so undeniable, I felt I just had to bring them to you. We've introduced this concept of fish oil now for a couple of months. It's set well with some, not with others, but the man of science that I hope will allow you to make the right assessments with respect to the fish oil controversy is none other than our guest today. His name is Professor Brian Peskin. He is the man of science. He has all the science, and hopefully by the end of the week, you'll be able to make the correct decision with respect to how you're going to get and obtain your fatty acids, your essential oils, and what form they're going to be and what form they will not be. And hopefully our subject of fish oil will have been, well, maybe not concluded, but at least a parenthesis and a dash for taking a pause at least. Professor Brian Peskin, our guest today. Now look, in the discussions all through the week, of course, today, if you have any questions, like to make a comment, the number, as we have always given to you, is 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. We'll try to get right at you when you knock at the door. Professor Brian Peskin, our guest, all 3 days this week. Now, as our schedule is shaping up for the remainder of the month, after we have recovered from our encounters with the professor this week, next week we'll be bringing back to us Konstantin Monastersky. I think with respect to controversy, the issue of fiber also was a challenging one. I hope you enjoyed our previous shows with Konstantin. We're going to be talking about constipation, which is probably the leading cause and the reason why fiber had become the abused substance that it really has been, and of course the harm that can come from that fiber. We've documented pretty clearly back in last Monday and Wednesday. So Konstantin is coming back on Monday and Wednesday of next week. We'll be turning the page by the time next week comes to an end and moving into the month of October. Now we got Susan Smith-Jones back here. By the way, folks, I had a patient. I was in consultation. I could not listen to the webinar. I'm hoping some of you can or did and can share with us how that seminar went. The webinar with Susan Smith-Jones that was on Friday at 2 o'clock. Boy, I wanted to catch that in the worst way, and I could not. So she's going to be back with us talking about weight loss. That was the content of the webinar anyway on the 5th of October, which is a Wednesday. Faye Houston's going to return with us. She has written a book, Silent Enemy, Environmental Illness, and a Woman's Search for a Cure. Her story is fascinating. She's been our guest at least once before. She requested to come back and be with you, Pittsburgh, because, well, she enjoyed being here the last time. Now, on the 6th, we're also beginning and reinitiating our MCG testing. You know what that means. Multifunctional cardiogram, a very trite term for a very interesting study. So scientific, so space-age, so electronic wizardry-minded. MCG testing allows us to learn the status of the coronary arteries, your coronary arteries, as if you had a cardiac catheterization without ever having to have such a terrible and invasive and risky study. Yes, it can be done, this little device, although from your viewport you lie in a bed just like you're getting an EKG done. In fact, it looks very much like an EKG, the tracings that we send off to get analyzed, but what's being done is an assessment of 166 different data points. I do not know how this device accomplishes it. Let's just say I take it on face value now with so much time to deal with it with respect to Jerry Singleton, who's been coming on radio for some time. I just come to accept the fact that it can do it, and in so doing, we can find out the status of your coronary arteries, and then the best part, intervene and actually improve that status, which should be reflected in future and up-and-coming MCG testing, which the insurance company are absolutely willing to pay for. You put that combination together, folks, you don't want to miss it. Those of you who couldn't be involved on the 8th of September when we were supposed to do this, because the device wasn't here, can now get rescheduled for the 6th of October. We should have called you if you were already scheduled. If you thought you'd like to be scheduled, but just didn't get around to it back then, you may want to call us now. Wait till about 9 o'clock. I want to talk to Kim, our office manager, and she'll get you slotted on the 6th of October and get you started with your first MCG evaluation. And of course, up to the 14th of October, we're going to have Dr. David Brownstein return. Now, we found out that while he had some time off for the summer, because it was about 2 months before we had been able to get him back on our show, he finished another book. We knew about the book. He was telling us that it was going to be in the offing. I've got a copy of it right in front of me. It's entitled The Soy Deception. Dr. David Brownstein will return with us to discuss his new book on October the 14th. And that's the way it stacks up as it stands right now. Now, you want to make sure that you give us a call. We can send out the 4-to-1 oil, the new replacement for the fish oils, which we're going to be talking about today and all week. 4-to-1, a combination of omega-6s and omega-3s, and a ratio of 4-to-1 linoleic to alpha-linolenic. This is the technical term for the names of the oils, but the parent oils, which represent those grouped in the linoleic category, the omega-6 category, is either primrose or sunflower oil, and in the omega-3, the alpha-linolenic category, flaxseed oil, the ratio 4-to-1, organic oils, and the purity of them is unquestioned, and the ability for you to replace your essential fatty acids, the actual must between the big three, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the least important. Proteins and the fats are the most. Hopefully this week we'll be able to put that in proper perspective. Also, RTD dressings, we have a few left here. Those of you who are diabetics out there and are concerned about taking care of wounds that you may develop, and I'm concerned for you, and to be able to get RTD dressings, which are a very specialized form of dressing, not really obtainable in any other venue. Many of the hospitals in the Pittsburgh area are now using them. Surgeons are using them to close when they've completed an operation, instead of just putting gauze on top of a wound, as they have done for, a century. Now, at least, they're utilizing and they're moving toward this antimicrobial impregnated substance that literally draws the organisms from the wound, those potential organisms, that is, into the dressing itself where they can be discarded. RTD dressings. Keep them in your medicine cabinet, especially if you're a diabetic, but you don't have to be. I've used them on my brood here in the last 4 or 5 months, and they've worked rather well, and neither of my sons are diabetics. Also, F3 BioAge, the company, bioengineered algae concentrates we were first introduced to by Roland Thomas, the CEO and head of BioAge. I call it the all-inclusive. The all-inclusive supplement has a ring to it. I like the term all-inclusive because literally one supplement can do it all. I mean, all vitamins, all minerals, whether they're macro or trace, all amino acids, all fats. It's all in one. I've never found it before. And an assimilable product that is so easy to take, and because it's a organically grown one-cell plant and form an algae, it's completely able to be absorbed in the GI system. Anyway, F3, the product, maker, BioAge, we've talked about it many times. Okay, let's do this. Let's take a short break. On our return, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are intrigued by our guest of not just today, our guest for Wednesday, and our guest for Friday. The subject will be the oils. Today we're talking about fish oil and how hazardous it is to your health by the Professor Brian Peskin on our return. Be right back.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Honey, just got the word. The company's new health plan has a $5,000 deductible. We have to make sure nobody gets sick this year. Remember what those doctor's visits cost for last year's colds and flu? Oh, sorry, I gotta go. Love you.
We can do this. We can cut the fast food lunches. Soda, that's a lot of sugar. We could all take that evening walk. And hey, I heard a program about fruit of the spirit. What did they say? 1 ounce, the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits with herbs and minerals. We could add some to our breakfast protein shakes. Fruit of the Spirit is a unique whole fruit puree. Fruit of the Spirit contains fresh fruits native to the Holy Land and alkalizing minerals from the Dead Sea. With no added sugars, Fruit of the Spirit's unique product from 5 years of work from science-based nutritional experts. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Fruit of the Spirit, convenient, affordable, and delicious. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health. We're here on KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney with you today on a Monday version of the show, and a well-awaited day it is, folks. We have been involved and embroiled in a big controversy around here for quite a number of weeks, all centering around this substance many of you become very comfortable with, and I know why. Everybody that you respected told you to take this stuff. The stuff is called fish oil, and, well, we have brought to you a gentleman today that I hope will get resolved. The scientific issue that you are really asking for. We continue to bring you the science, not the hype. Our guest, well, he's going to be here for the entire week, is the most recognized authority on the subject of fish oils, fatty acid metabolism, essential oils, parent oils. He's got the nomenclature. It's his. He's lectured worldwide. He has by his own admission, done 1,000 radio interviews, and soon to be author of what's going to become, I'm sure, the most controversial book of the decade. Now I'm going to introduce this gentleman by an interesting point. He addressed in December of 2010 a group of all of the most hep doctors, the alternative doctors, members of a group called A4M. You know about A4M. the group that meets once a year in Las Vegas and really does have the movers, groovers, and shakers of the alternative world all under one roof. Well, our Professor Brian Peskin addressed them on that date, and I'm going to read to you a quote at the very closing of that address. He completed his lecture, he showed his slides, and then he said, as he was leaving the stage, here it comes, folks. Before you heard this lecture, you were not responsible. Now that you have heard it, you are responsible. If you continue to prescribe fish oils to your general patients, given the horrific fish oil failures as published in the world's leading journals, you are guilty of nothing less than criminal malpractice. Now, folks, if there's one way to get the attention of a group of 4,000 doctors, it's closing your speech with that quote. I'm going to turn to the gentleman who spoke those words and bring him to you now. His name, Professor Brian Peskin. Professor Peskin, are you there with us today?
Good morning. That was my quote.
That was your quote. By the way.
And I stand by it.
And you continue to stand by it.
It's even worse. The more science I look at, Doc, the worse this gets.
Well, we hopefully are going to be able to, with the time we have this week, to really get to these scientific issues. This book in the offering, I just should mention right out of the chute, someone that all of our listeners know very well is in collaboration with you. We know him because he's quite up on the hierarchy of the alternative docs and a personal friend of mine. His name, Dr. Robert Rowan, and the two of you are going to be coming out with this book sometime in the very near future. I'm very interested in it. I do believe it'll be the most controversial book of the decade, Doc, and I know you can handle the heat.
I'm not a doc, but I am a professor, thank you. Yeah, we're working on which publisher is going to do it as we speak. And Dr. Rowan is a raw foods vegan. I'm a hardcore carnivore, so we've never had a situation where both dichotomies are on the same page. The common link is the oils. So this is going to revolutionize your dietary choices, what you want to do. You can be a carnivore, you can be a vegetarian, you can be raw foods like Dr. Rowan, or anything in between and be healthy with this discovery. But I want to explain how people are misled, Doc, with studies, experiments, associations, what fish oil is, and your listeners are just going to be absolutely shocked and probably quite mad by the end of this at how they've been misled.
Well, I think that I wanted to maybe pull from you before we kick this off, because, boy, if there's anybody, ladies and gentlemen, with the science, you're about to hear this gentleman spew forth what he's been able to glean from the very prestigious journals throughout the world. But let's maybe start it off by saying, how do you come here, Professor? You're not a physician, as you say. I call you Doc, but believe you me, I certainly mean that as a term of endearment. You may not consider it
if
to
I was a physician, you wouldn't have this discovery because I'd be making the same mistakes all the other ones are. And there's a lot of good people in the medical field, yourself included, don't get me wrong. But I am an engineer by training. I come from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Electrical Engineering. You go, what the heck does an engineer have to do with how the body is?
Exactly.
Well, I took the same precepts. I'm used to analyzing very sophisticated systems. So there's an input, your food. There's a system called your body. There's an output. Are you overweight? Are you the way you should be? Are you healthy? Are you diseased? So I took the same precepts in advanced engineering and put them into basically medicine with the human body, except one major difference. My whole thing is cause-effect. I have no interest in associations. I have no interest in studies. All I care about is if you do this, then that happens. If I add 2 to another 2, I get 4. It doesn't matter if it's Thursday. It doesn't matter if it's snowing. It doesn't matter if I'm over in Italy or in America. It's 4. So my science has to work, I say 80% of the time. It's 100% because we are more alike than we're different. And if people get nothing more than this, we're more alike than we're different. If we were all different, and everybody loves to say this because it gives you a big out, there would be no textbook of medical physiology. There would be no textbook of medical biochemistry. And, of course, there's different authors with different focuses, but it's all the same biochemistry. It's all the same physiology. So the eye color is different. The hair color is different. But it's the same underneath. I can't live underground like a termite. I can't live in water like a fish. I have to have certain things. So that's what I focus on. And because I don't give myself an out where you're all different, I get success.
Well, I would like to, one other point I think is very helpful for our listener. So much of what we always bring to our listeners are people who have their own personal plight involved with their epiphany on how they move into various areas.
Yeah.
I thought it was very foretelling, for instance, your wife was stricken with diabetes. There's an interesting story that I'm familiar with. I think our listeners would appreciate it because you went to get your wife the best care possible, and it didn't turn out that way. And it's then that I thought the real impetus began for you to delve into this. Could you spend a moment on that, if you could?
Well, that's actually what got me into the field, my wife being sick.
And are you okay?
The doctor's recommendations made her worse. And that's when, and she was a pharmacist, and actually she went to Dr. Wicker's Institute, a big diabetic physician in California.
Well known to us. Very well known.
Very, very well known. Gets the blood chemistry sent to her, and it's worse than when she started. And my comment was, why did you pay him given this fallacious result? Because it was thousands of dollars. And she goes, well, Brian, they send you the results home after you leave with the blood chemistry and everything. I said, now I know why. And he was a high complex carbohydrate guy with the glycemic index for the diabetics, and that is absolute bunk. We can talk about that later if you want to. And I was just beside myself. So basically, 5 years later in the medical libraries, because I live in Houston, we have the #1 cancer center in the world, MD Anderson Cancer Institute. It's the biggest cancer center in the world, so you can imagine their library. It's phenomenal. 300,000 volumes of medical textbooks, medical publications going back to 1830 with the Lancet. I saw it myself in hard copy. So 5 years there, it was, my goodness, the science says one thing, and the popular comments, the common quote wisdom, the popular opinion, and most of what is said in the nutritional and medical community is the opposite of the science. So I went ballistic, and it's been almost 20 years of hardcore science. So I brought my scientific training into the field of medicine, and I always start with the physiology. And we are so misled. Here's the problem, Doc. What we're told to do is actually the cause of the problem.
Now, how did we get here, Professor? Because everybody, me included.
That's the excellent question, and I've gone round and round with it. But it is finance masquerading as science.
That's simple.
And it's not just in medicine, it's in everything. But this is what happens when money takes priority. The science goes down the drain. And that's the problem. With fish oil, for example, where do you think it came from? Because I was back in the days when nobody could sell fish oil. All the distributors know. They had lots of spoiled fish, because it always starts this way. Lots of spoiled fish. What do I do with it? I can't sell it to a good restaurant. Nobody's going to buy it. I can't even sell it to a medium good restaurant. Juice it. Turns into oil. and we could sell the stuff. Except it was a heck of a lot harder to sell the stuff when they came up with this idea. It's taken 20 years with enormous advertising budgets and enormous money to fund these, quote, studies, which I'll talk about in a little bit, at universities to put this through and act like fish oil works. And I want to make it very, very clear, fish oil never worked from the beginning. And I'm going to give you some of the actual experiments going back to Harvard in 1995 showing the abysmal failure of the garbage. But it's money.
It is money.
Finance masquerading as science. Now, you can't get that in certain things. You cannot get that in engineering, for example. I turn on my computer and it blows up in your face. Boom. I'm sued. I can't do that. I design a building. I'm a mechanical engineer, and the thing falls down after you put it up 5 minutes later. That is unacceptable. But you can pull that in the field of medicine, where the body is so good, if I give you the wrong advice and you do what I tell you and it's wrong, it may take 20 years before I see the negative effects of it and I die, or I get a disease. It may take 5 years. I can't prove that one recommendation was wrong. So my comment is, and I founded the field of life systems engineering science, is the body is so good, nature is so good, we're allowed to abuse ourselves very, very much before the major problems come, and it makes it harder. Having the plane crash immediately is actually an easier thing to fix. I hope it never happens. But because it fails immediately, or the building falls down, or the TV or the computer blows up in your face, easy to make sure that doesn't happen. Not so easy to make sure the nutritional, the medical recommendations are wrong, except we have good science. I can measure blood chemistry. I can look at the physiology. So I always know where I'm going. This is the other big thing. A good scientist, and I learned this at MIT, should always have a feel where the results are taking them. Now, many times you can be wrong, but you should always have a gut feeling, and if you're wrong, you are obligated to tell people you're wrong, or if there's inconsistencies or problems with your pet theories. That's the other problem. Doctors and theoreticians get enamored with their grand theory and don't want to hear it doesn't work. So when there's examples where it fails, that gets swept under the rug and we don't mention them. We mention the other ones. And this is the problem with studies. They say in fish oil, for example, there's been 15,000 of them, is what they're told. Now, the first thing with me is I hear the number 15,000. Why? How many studies of gravity are there? You know, are we still looking right? No, there's none.
There are none.
But it's even worse. Out of those 15,000, the majority of them are failures. You're not told that. So the first thing everybody needs to know is there's studies, there's experiments, and there's associations. What's a study? You do this, you do that. There's no controls. Okay? You can be doing many things. So I say, Doc, take fish oil, and that's going to be my difference, and the other group doesn't take fish oil. Well, you can be taking other oils. You can be doing all kinds of other things that I don't know about that don't go into this mix. What I want is an experiment. Now, what's an experiment? There's one variable. How do I do the best experiment? I throw both groups in cages, and I feed them. Can you do that with people? Pretty hard. Pretty hard. So the number one thing you want to do is have as few variables as possible. Now, here's the other thing, the association. This is the field of epidemiology. So if I'm an epidemiologist over at Harvard, for example, typically an MD, and there's Willett over at Harvard, there's some decent ones. But I'll only take decent because epidemiology is associations. And here's the problem with that. You get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and the sun is arising. So the epidemiologist over at Harvard would go, Dr. Dennis Courtney's arising at 6 a.m. is associated with the sun coming up. And that'd be the end of it. You'd have people running around that. Guy made the sun come up. They take the word association and change cause. And that's the way the headlines end up being, and that's the problem. Me being a scientist would do an experiment. Okay, you think you made the sun come up? Don't get up at 6. Get up at 7. Of course, the sun's already up. Don't get up at 7. Get up at 8. Okay, the sun's up even more. Don't get up at 6. Get up at 5 a.m. The sun's still not up yet. So by running the gamut, I have enough data to go, what time you got up had absolutely nothing to do with the sun arising. There's no association whatsoever. This is the stopped clock is right twice a day. Okay, so you can have a clock with no battery in it twice a day if I look at the right time and get lucky. The clock was, 6 a.m. Well, you get fooled. It has to be the experiment, and that is the world I live in. So that's the first thing. Never get suckered with associations or studies. They're not worth the paper they're printed on. This is not just me saying this. This is John Ioannidis, MD, PhD, 2011 director of Stanford Preventive Research, which is at Stanford Medical School in California. And his quote was, for most studies, it's more likely for the claim to be false than true. So when you see the next nutritional supplement like fish oil being the miraculous thing, the odds are highly in favor that that is nonsense and not true, okay, when you do the analysis of it. So people have got to understand there's a lot of criteria you want. The other big thing is when you get negative findings, and I'm going to give you a chunk of them that the listeners are going to flip over in a little bit. A negative finding is 100 times stronger than a positive one, because I can get that positive finding for many different reasons. You may be a big athlete. That's negating the negative effects of the dietary choice. Just because you're running a lot, for example, and putting more oxygen into the bloodstream, there's different things you may be doing that the study doesn't know about, and that gives them an artificial cause-effect solution in there that they're not counting for. This is called an analysis of variance, where you have to know every possible thing up front that somebody's doing, and it's never done. You can't do it. So most of these studies, this is why new research shows, right? Every couple of years, the old stuff is wrong. The new research shows, and my first comment is, where are these guys that had the old research and why aren't they fired? Because no one is held accountable. And again, as an engineer, if I make the wrong call, I deserve to be shot. And I'm the first one on the line. If you follow my recommendations and they're wrong, I deserve major problems because your health is on the line. And that's why I publish nothing until it's confirmed, reconfirmed. I've gone around and round 15 different ways. And with my work, you can start anywhere and get the same consistent answers because it's called internally consistent. And this comes from mathematical theory and probability theory and doing proofs. You have to be able to start anywhere. And because I'm correct, just picture a circle and I'm at the center, I can go any radius of that circle from the center to the circumference of it on any radius you want, and it always hits the circumference of the circle because the science is right.
All right.
There's some rules you have to have that experiments are all that counts. You better get 80% success rate or it doesn't work. It's as simple as that. And if you look at that standard, most of this nonsense out in the nutritional market, fish oil is the number one, fail. And they've always failed. And like I said, with fish oil, 2002, and then you can ask me whatever you want. I just want to say, cardiovascular research, dietary effect of supplementation with omega-3 fatty acids on progression of atherosclerosis, which is plaque buildup in carotid artery. Okay, this was in Cardiovascular Research, a top heart journal in the world. They looked at two groups, the fish oil group and the control. And at the end, of 2 years, both groups were the same. The arteries actually got more clogged with the fish oil. And this was 1.65 grams, and this was published. In 1995, Harvard did the same thing, and it was called Controlled Trial of Fish Oil. So I give you fish oil, I give the other group olive oil. 1995, this was 6 grams, 2 years. Quote, fish oil treatment does not promote major favorable changes in the diameter of atherosclerotic coronary arteries. Going back to 1995 failure. I've got a lot of talking there.
No, but that does focus in on one of the big reasons why all doctors, especially cardiologists, they think they're really swift. Now they are putting everybody on fish oils under the premise, under the ruse, that this is extremely helpful for them. Yet you cite literature that says the complete opposite, and I take your lesson.
Well, there's more.
There's more.
Huh? Let's see. Annals of Internal Medicine, 1999. The effect of dietary omega-3 on coronary atherosclerosis, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. That means they just randomly pick, you're taking this, you're doing that. You don't know which is which, the same deal. 2 years, both failed. Now this is going back to 1995, 1999, 2002. How many more? If you don't believe that, look at Omicor, which is the purified fish oil. I forget what they call it now.
I think it's called Lavazza, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Their 2005 medical literature. Now, it was published before that. It was published in 2000 in Japan. Studies indicate that at levels used, fish oil decreases the immune response. Okay? This was published, and I was over in China at a lecture on essential fatty acids, so I told her, and they mentioned this. Now, your immune system goes down. The 2005 warning, under adverse reactions, there were double the number of people who developed infections, reduced immunity when taking Omicor compared to those not taking the fish oil. Users suffered more flu symptoms, lowered immunity. 4 times the people suffered skin rash with the drug. There's no fish oil in the skin, and because there's such an overdose of taking this garbage, it gets shoved into the skin, and the skin gets screwed up. But completely consistent with the 2000 publication is this stuff. It's published, and nobody does anything. I sit here looking at this, connecting the dots very well, screaming, how can nobody be doing anything about this? Because it's obvious. Again, finance masquerading as science. The physicians have a protocol that's accepted. They're making money on it, which they deserve to be. I have no problem with people making money, Doc. Everybody makes money. You have to work. But you should be doing something that's correct, that's scientifically right, and helping people. So I want to make 2 things clear before you can ask me anything you want. You have to have experiments to tell what works and what doesn't work. And that's one group takes the fish oil, the other group takes something else like olive oil. Olive oil, we'll talk about EFAs and what these things actually are and what fish oil actually has in it. Turns out there's nothing essential in fish oil at all, and you're getting pharmaceutical overdoses of components your body would never make. That's why you're getting these problems. This is why the stuff can't possibly work. But when you look at the experiments, they fail, and the experiments go back to 1995 with a clear history of failure. And the stuff that's coming out in 2010, 2011, I'm going to tell you about in a little bit, is staggering. These are completely under-publicized, even though they're phenomenal failures once again.
So we got the kickoff dance was about 20 to 30 years ago, and money was at the start of it. And now
getting rid of a lot of spoiled fish.
And a lot of spoiled fish.
Well, here's something that just because we're on the subject. Pharmaceutical-grade fish oil capsules. Each capsule, 17 pounds of fish is used in it.
Oh, I read that from you. That is amazing.
So Shomacor or any pharmaceutical-grade fish oil capsule, even in the health stores, for that one bottle of 100 capsules, you just destroyed 1,700 fish. 1,700 pounds of fish. That sounds absolutely insane. And when I first looked at it, I had that checked by 3 different people, PhDs, and I mean, even going back to Barry Sears, who's a big fish oil guy, confirmed it. So these are a fish oil guy numbers himself, because they have to distill it, throw away stuff. 1,700 pounds. That tells you the kind of fish they have to get rid of, doesn't it?
Wow.
One lousy bottle.
1,700.
Yep.
Wow. All right, folks, let's do this. Professor, take a break. Listeners, you take a break. Let it mull around just a bit. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. And remember, we're going to be with Professor Brian Peskin, and we're going to delve more into why fish oils aren't as trumped up, or way trumped up, more trumped up than they should be, why you maybe shouldn't be taking those fish oils, because they are hazardous to your health. Be back in a moment with the professor.
Have you been to the doctor lately? Was fatigue top of your complaint list? Even if your doctor asks you what you eat, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is a dream in your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in the formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's Fruit of the Spirit. The blessings of Fruit of the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit puree product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Fruit of the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Fruit of the Spirit, 5 servings of fruits and minerals with no added sugars. That's 1-800-442-3793 for your good health. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health on a Monday morning version of the show in the week of Professor Brian Peskin. We're talking about fish oils this week. We're talking about all sorts of oils this week. Today, focusing on why fish oils aren't as what they're trumped up to be, and maybe why they can potentially be hazardous to your health, too. And the gentleman who ought to know, our guest today, Professor Brian Peskin. Professor, you with us again?
Absolutely.
Now, Professor, you've got, and I know your scientific research is impeccable. You were citing some studies. They're from prestigious institutions.
Yeah.
They're in the 1990 era.
Yep.
How about more recent? Do we have any?
Nothing's changed. 2010.
Oh, that's recent.
Real recent. I'm going to give 2010, 2011. The active components of fish oil, by the way, are EPA, DHA. Those are the 2 things. So if people hear the terms DHA, EPA, Those are the oils in the fish oil. Well, here, 2010, fish oil found worthless in decreasing abnormal heart rhythm, which is called atrial fibrillation. Now, millions of people die a year because of this. This is published in the American Journal of Cardiology, 2010. Increases the risk of colon cancer. This is 2010. Here's their quote. We hypothesized that feeding fish oil with DHA would decrease the cancer. We actually found the opposite. Even in the lower doses. This was published in Cancer Research, major cancer journal. Never got the publicity it should have. Another major one. You always hear DHA is great for the brain. The brain's loaded with it. And it's got a chunk in there. It's about 15, 16% DHA EPA. DHA and fish oil shown completely worthless with Alzheimer's. In summary, their quote was, DHA supplementation is not useful. It doesn't work at all. What's this? JAMA. Surely the American Medical Association. That's the second best journal in America. You have the top two, JAMA and New England Journal of Medicine. This did not make any headlines. 2010, fish oil is worthless in preventing heart disease in type 1 diabetic women. Now, diabetes is the #1 group for heart problems. If you have diabetes, you have a 10 to 15 times greater chance of getting heart problems all over the place. There's reasons for that. With the high blood sugar, the details don't matter. All that matters, if you're diabetic, you've got a problem. And if fish oil was going to work anywhere, it would have had to have worked here, and it did nothing. Nothing. Here's another one. It increases blood platelet aggregation. So the blood clumps together, the opposite of what people wanted. Now, this was 1986. And the reason I give it to you, because it was published in America's #1 journal, New England Journal of Medicine. If people in the medical field would only go back to the original work, like with gravity, and stop redoing experiments that already failed, maybe they get somewhere. But this is awful. Another thing fish oil does is it keeps blood sugar levels high and blunts the insulin response. This one was 1989, and I give you this because this is awful. What is the #1 epidemic in the world today? Diabetes. Everybody in America is diabetic. You give somebody fish oil, you're putting them firmly on the path to it. If you're an athlete, that's the worst thing you want, because if you know anything about medical physiology for athletes and sports medicine, muscles use sugar when they're stressed. So any athletic performance is when you want to use the sugar. Fish oil stops that. It starves the muscle, so you're starving yourself of fuel if you're an athlete. Another big one. Fish oil increased skin cancer, melanoma. Where did this come from? This was Norway. Published in the International Journal of Cancer, they gave cod liver oil. 3 times more people got skin cancer, and the author's quote was, the increase is real and not due to changes in diagnostic criteria. Here's another enormous one. Cancer is the #2 killer in America. If you're taking fish oil, it stops the effectiveness of chemotherapy. 2011, this was published in Cancer Cell, another prestigious cancer journal. Fish and marine-based oils should not be used while people are undergoing chemotherapy. This is the author's warning. Did you see this published? It just came out last week.
Last week.
It just came out last week with this bombshell. I saw nothing in the popular press picking up on it at all.
Not a word. No, really, not a word. I scour every day and have not seen one mention of it.
Yep. Just like in 2010, the failure after failure after failure doesn't get popularized because all the health journals, all the popular press, all the physicians on TV like Dr. Ox and all those guys that are strictly parrots. And I want to make this very clear, Doc. You do not have these people doing any independent research or analysis like I did. All they do is read a headline and parrot it. So don't think for a second anybody has thought twice about the recommendation, if it makes sense or if it doesn't, or analyzes anything. They are nothing more than parrots, and they are killing people with stupid advice. Now, if it was a zero and it didn't harm you, I wouldn't be making comments like that. But I can't sit here and allow statements that are harming people when the world's leading medical journals that I just gave you, time after time after time, are reporting how they're harming people, and nobody's doing anything.
Wow.
Let me give you the reason why this stuff doesn't work. DHA, EPA, real quickly. Physicians in the medical community were misled in the 20th century because the analytical methods weren't what they are today. But the 21st century quantitative measures, meaning how do I measure stuff? Here's the thing. You are getting in a capsule of fish oil, the typical amount, 20 to 400 times more than your body would ever make of the two components of fish oil, EPA and DHA. So burn that into your memory, everybody listening. 20 to 400 times more than your body would ever make on its own. And there's one analogy you need to think about. If you want to take an aspirin or two for a headache now and then, you better not take it every day because it's awful. But now and then for a headache, I'm not going to yak too much. You can do that. You take 100 aspirin, and what happens? You're dead.
Yeah, you would die.
You will die. And the analogy with the overdose is the same thing with fish oil on a daily basis. So this number, how do you come up with 100 to 400 times? National Institutes of Health did the analysis, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture in the 21st century did it. Your body makes almost no DHA or EPA. So what did the health field come up with? What did the medical community say? Oh, everybody's enzyme metabolic pathway is screwed up. It's either, quote, slow or it doesn't work. And they were all wrong. There's almost none of this stuff made. And here's the simple reason. Where does a cold water fish live? Cold water. What's cold? Freezing, 32, 70. Okay, 70's not real cold, but it's cold to us. Where do we live? 100, 98.6. You take DHA and EPA, it's very fluid. It's got a lot of double bonds. That's a chemical structure. That you don't really need to care about much either, but it's a big, long thing. And it's very, very flexible. Why do I need that? Because when I have something frozen, it turns into an ice cube. But if I have alcohol in the ice cube, it'll keep it fluid. Well, it's the same kind of thing with the DHA and EPA. It will keep the cell membrane fluid, acting like alcohol, in the fish. What do you think happens when you put it at 100 degrees? It spontaneously turns rancid. That's called oxidation. That's how you get rust. So picture something immediately at body temperature even at room temperature, it's ruined. You take this stuff in the body, and it's turning rancid immediately. That's why the immune system goes down so fast. So all of your antioxidant stuff are trying to stop this oxidation process. What's that doing? Well, your body needs lots of antioxidants to work normally. So it's grabbing them from places it should be working, and it's trying to go, I got this assault on all this fish oil from this idiot that's doing this that we would never do on our own. Once again, we're trying to override their nature. And the results are awful.
Wow.
So that's the reason we produce almost none of this stuff. The only place DHA and EPA is in the brain and nervous system. And you go, yeah, but that's a big deal. Well, 16% of your brain and nervous system are made of it. The rest of it is parent essential oils and other fats we'll talk about later. And it's nowhere else. Now, what happens when you have 100 times overdose or 400 times overdose? It is forced to go elsewhere.
All right. Take a look. Professor, we got bongos in the background. That signals our time out of here, folks. We're going to be back with the professor on Wednesday. We're going to talk about that parent oil stuff, the stuff you should be taking. Fair enough, Professor?
Yes.
I thank you so much for coming today. I'm looking forward, as our listeners are, for Wednesday, when we can find out how the healthy approach should be put together. I'll Professor Brian Peskin. Be back with you then, Professor.
My pleasure.
Okay, folks. See you then. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with the Professor saying so long for AIM Impact on Your Health.
AM Impact on Your Health is sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, MD, Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, MD. New from Garden of Life, Vitamin Code Raw multivitamins. That's right, raw. They are made with the highest quality standards to preserve raw nutrients. Vitamin Code multivitamins are uncooked, untreated, unadulterated, binder and filler free with no fructose, maltodextrin,